Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth It Then, Worth It Now, a sort of side project I do over on this channel where I have a look at games from yesteryear. Not exactly contemporary or in vogue, but generally speaking these are the games that are near and dear to my heart, or at least I think deserve another look at. And where possible I try and line them up with a sale, which has been kind of easy I guess this week because of the Steam Summer Fest. Can kind of pick whatever I want, and today I picked Jurassic World Evolution 1 specifically. There is 2 which I should play some more, but funnily enough it's actually quite almost radically different from this game, and 3 has been announced on the horizon, so I'm very excited because this game specifically is one of my favorites and I come back to constantly, and even just reinstalling it for B-roll for this video. It's a dangerous slippery slope that I can fall down very easily. I will however front load with this information. I wanted to cover this earlier in the sale, but I've had a real hard time running it. There seems to be some sort of pervasive problem that the more I Google about it, the more I realize it's a building issue, some sort of modern, relatively recently introduced hardware conflict. Think the last 6 months, something like that. And for the life of me, I can't troubleshoot it. It seems to cause the game to lock up and freeze your PC potentially when it gets really bad. Nothing I've been able to do has been able to fix it. It is clearly some sort of issue with modern architecture of some description, because every PC that I've played it on previously, it's been flawless, and it's a 2018 game as well. So there's something about my newer build, and I know I'm not alone. So I would just say, buyer beware going into this. If you have a relatively new computer, there is an issue here. Frontier doesn't seem to be really responding or acknowledging it at all. I would still say it's worth rolling the dice for the couple of dollars that you can generally pick this up on if you haven't played it before, or maybe you do have an older computer. Not everyone's running some NASA 40 or 50 series like I am, but I don't want to bury that, and it has been a bit of a headache for me. I just cannot circumvent the issue no matter what. Now, putting that aside, it's still one of my favorite games of all time. If you've never heard of it, Operation Genesis is the previous version of this, of which this is a spiritual successor to. Sort of like 2 Point Hospital to Theme Hospital, reigniting and bringing back a great classic into modern times. That's what this did for Operation Genesis, which, if you're not across it, was, a Jurassic Park management game built exclusively, or specifically rather, from the ground up for, I think it was the original Xbox. So very thumbstick friendly, and a lot of that notion comes across here. I don't believe I've ever played this with thumbsticks, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's perfectly viable. You can feel it, right? It has a little bit of a console edge to it, but not to the extreme example. I know I'm talking very in the grey, but there are some games that become very difficult to play with mouse and keyboard if they were built purposefully, especially as a strategy game. This one stands fine. I've only ever used it mouse and keyboard, and like I said, I love it to death. It's there if you're looking for it and you're thinking about it, but it's not a game breaker. Well, not like these current bugs at least. Funnily enough, I was actually just looking at what was on the deepest sale of this Steam Sale Fest, and Jurassic World Evolution 2 is like 95% off. You could probably get that much cheaper. And when I booted that up, I kind of got virtual whiplash because I haven't really spent much time in that, more than a couple of hours, and they really changed the model. And from what I understand, a lot of people are happy with it, and I stand as a bit of an exception. Evolution 2 stands a little bit closer to the rest of Frontier Development's catalogue when you think of things like the Planet Coaster games, the Planet Zoo, where it's a lot more sandboxy, creative, less combative. And the thing I really enjoyed about Jurassic World Evolution specifically was that it's kind of challenging, kind of tricky, like not brutally hard, push you away, but it's on the other end of the scale, away from more sandbox, freeform, creative and relaxing. So I don't want to talk about too much because I'm a bit in the dark. However, I do know there's like a lot of challenge mode stuff in there, which I'm having a little bit of a born again moment playing challenge mode in this, and I've sort of come to realize that that may well be the correct way to actually play this game, and the majority of the campaign, etc., was sort of a warm-up. Anyway, at its core, you're running a theme park, much like the Jurassic Park movies, and it has every mechanic and concept baked into it you could possibly think of. You have to look after the dinosaurs and keep them calm. Some are more temperamental than others. So, you have raptors, your T-Rexes, your big ticket items, the ones that are just begging to break out because in a way, that's kind of why you're here. That's why you're into the movies. We're not in it for a Planet Zoo vibe where, you can pat koalas and take your kids on a family-friendly trip. You're kind of wanting to ride the lightning and tempt the breakout. And so, building a lot of your infrastructure and considerations around that is important because you can have, hurricanes and tornadoes come through which agitate the dinosaurs, which cause them to start attacking fences, and they can potentially break out and eat your guests. It's very clever. Couple that with all the different science divisions that you have to talk to and do missions for, and you have a loyalty system where if you neglect them too much, they'll start sabotaging parts of your park, and you can and will have full-scale reenactments of the Jurassic Park first movie with the power grid going down and everything starting to go sideways. And in those moments, that's where you actually have to say manually get in a Jeep and drive out and reset it. You got helos where you can jump in. The AI does a perfectly fine job, but you will always do it better. But maybe there are dinosaurs going absolutely rampant and they need tranquilizing. You jump in the helicopter and hang out the window with the gun. So it has a kind of action layer to it. But the real beating heart of what makes it work is the soft Metroidvania. I know you probably weren't expecting hearing that, but I'm forever going to beat the drum about this, that houses the meta progression around this game. And I'm pretty sure most of this is absent in the second game, whereby you essentially island hop backwards and forwards through, let's say, 5-6 different parks as you progress the star level of the park's rating, which in turn is a balance between dinosaur feasibility, viability, attraction, but there's a dinosaur score up to 5 stars. And there's also a guest satisfaction score up to 5 stars, which can be all sorts of things from making sure they've got somewhere to eat or poo, making sure they can see all the dinosaurs, there's hotel accommodation, to the point where when your park gets really big, you'll need monorails and transport to get people around from point A to point B. It's not overwhelming, there's plenty of mechanics here, and not that I've got anything wrong with Planet Zoo or anything like that, but I've definitely put not that much time into them. I do really enjoy them, and I badly need to play more of them, but this is a bit more graspable. Those are a lot more hardcore, I would say, when it comes into a lot of that guest management. But yeah, ultimately, if I were to carve you a scenario out of the campaign, which is narrated by Ian Malcolm, talking in your ear about everything you do is a terrible idea, so it's very one-to-one with the movie, you would endeavour to push the star rating and balance those two sectors up to 1 star, maybe 2 stars. I'm not quite sure whether the first thing kicks off, but let's say it's 1 star. At that point, you will likely unlock a new island, and that will, be different all again. It might be a very narrow strip of land, limited build area, very expensive power plants or whatever, tornado season. Each of them have different sort of little scenario type things you have to wrestle with and overcome. And then you jump to that island, and potentially when you get to 1 or 2 stars in that, you'll unlock something else. And a lot of the other stuff like fossil sites where you go and get the fossils for dinosaurs to then, bring them back to life. There's a whole process there, all the way into R&D, the ability to unlock medium electrified fences or whatever. These will be gated by island-specific unlocks, which in turn are gated by the star rating. So it's not as simple as, here's your first island, get it to 5 stars, full sandbox. It's more like, get it to 1 star with a handful of things that are pretty low tier, jump to another island, unlock some more goodies there, then start making decisions. Do I jump to yet another island? Do I jump back to the first island and push it to 2 stars now that I've got access to more research teams, or my fossil recovery rate's a bit higher, or I've got a different set of, tools for genetically altering the dinosaurs, because that's a really big part that they've taken from the Jurassic World movie reimagining series. I quite like that first movie, to be honest, and the spirit of that is here, which is to say dinosaurs aren't cool anymore because everyone knows that they're back. People want bigger and better and meaner and genetically spliced, and it's a kind of cynical but tragically realistic way to look at the whole thing. So yeah, you might have that Carnotaurus and have its genome fully developed to 100%, so it's got a very high rating and you've got it under control, you've got its enclosure right, you're making sure that its population levels are the right level, it's fed, it's watered, it's happy with the amount of grassland and all that, but now you can start fucking with its genetic code at a base level and start splicing frog DNA into it, changing its color, making its teeth bigger, which in turn makes its viability go down to the point where, you know, you'll get to having a supersized T-Rex and you've jacked it up and it's going to cost millions of dollars to create, and there's a 10% chance it will actually survive the process. So there's this juggling between your Frankensteinian mad scientist stuff and trying to get it over the line. Maybe you put all these special upgrades on the incubation center to upgrade its viability to push this monstrosity out that even the game doesn't really want you to make. It's conspiring for it to die in the womb. And then what do you know? It'll be out of control and inconsolable, totally irate and very hard to keep under control. But my God, it'll get you to 5 stars because that's what the people want to see. Anyway, hopefully this gives you a bit of a snippet of the broad back and forth of what makes this game tick and makes it fun. There's a campaign holding it all together with that sort of Castlevania progress system back and forth, which keeps it dynamic and interesting. There are a lot of DLC expansions. Some of them are just stuff added into the campaign whole cloth, like the Doctor Wu subversive, hidden, off-the-books experiment stuff, which is cool. But then you've got Claire's Sanctuary, which from what I understand is reenacting part of the second new movie. Oh my God, it's hard to keep track in this day and age, where you're kind of trying to Noah's Ark all these poor little dinosaurs off a sanctuary island before they get killed by a volcano or something like that. And it's really fun and interesting and unusual, and it shakes it up. It's a great thing to come to once you've kind of really played a lot of the core game. And then there's another DLC that's got the Return to Jurassic Park. It's very gimmicky, but at the same time, it's an absolute nostalgia bait. Everything's reskinned, and it's kind of a mini replay of the very first original movie built into this game that was kind of built around the Jurassic World framework. And then, I know I've left it to the end, there's challenge mode, which I've kind of only just recently discovered. You can pick the difficulty. That in turn will put different limitations on it. Ultimately, the idea is to get from 0 to 5 stars as fast as possible. It sets a par time per the difficulty. It seems quite tricky, actually. Really is the culmination of putting you to the test, with a constant sort of Hammond tax going not up against the clock, but as you earn more, it jumps up too. So if you make any false jumps and don't go up steady and stable, you might find yourself drowning and not treading water quite as well. It's really quite excellent and a bit tragic I took so long to really get around to playing it. Anyway, look, like I said, excellent game. Seems to have some issues on modern rigs. Buyer beware, but also it's probably worth rolling the dice. It's worth dusting off the second computer in storage, or, you know, if you're listening to me and maybe you're in that situation, you've got a GPU that's on its last legs, it needs an upgrade. This is the game to play before you upgrade to that new PC. Anyway, that's plenty of waffling. I'm obviously a big fan. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.